Welcome to a new episode of Oh, She's Funny. I'm your host, LP, and today we've got a great guest. You've thought, oh, she's funny when you've seen her in countless TV shows like Enlightened, The Comeback, or even selling you a cell phone on some commercials. She's here today. Please welcome Bayne Gibby. Hey, bud.
Hi, good to see you.
You. It's been a long time. We've known each
I
other for a long
know.
time, but I haven't seen you in ages.
Yeah, we go way back to New York.
New York improv time. You were a member of the kick-ass improv group Miss Jackson.
And you were a member of Feathers and Flannel.
Flannel used to open for Miss Jackson. You guys were the coolest. You wore jumpsuits.
That's right. We wore Adidas
Yeah.
jumpsuits. We've had, I think, three uniforms over the years. It
Uh,
started with a black one with hot pink. No, it
that's
started with
very
blue,
good.
navy, and then we had. So we've been together long enough to wear out three sets of pants.
When was the last time you guys performed? Long ago, or do you ever do
A
it?
couple years ago, we kind of got when everyone sort of started having kids, we sort of had a conversation because we would get asked to do like an 11 p.m. show and do 20
It's
minutes. And
hard, right?
we were all kind of trying to muscle through. And I don't even have kids, but we sort of had to have this conversation that was like, how about no later than like an 8 p.m. curtain? And so we haven't done anything in a minute, but we totally would. I think every time we get together to do a set here or there, we have a blast. It's just everyone's
Right.
raising people and busy and doing a
No
million
one's, no
things.
one's organizing the show bookings.
Yeah, it's my favorite. Like I did a two-hander with Jess Allen Eason a few years ago for
Mm,
some charity night. And it was honestly one of my favorite performances ever. And we thought we were going to be so rusty. And it was I know there's something, as you know, about performing with old friends. They kind of know what you're going to do.
yeah, you know each other so well, you fall right back into it. That's so nice. I
Yeah.
miss doing improv. I haven't done it in a while.
It's always going to be there.
It's always there and it's always fun. And yeah, I was just thinking about Feathers and Flannel because I was catching up on Somebody Somewhere with Jeff Hiller, and he's so lovely in it. But that was
I'm
quite a time.
so happy for him. And there
Mhm.
was a very funny feathers and flannel moment where I think you guys were all doing the Atkins diet. You all started losing weight, and everyone in Miss Jackson was worried you were on cocaine because you all started losing weight at the same time. And then we found out it was that you were all sort of doing this Atkins together.
So much wholesomeness in that story. One, that you guys were worried about us. That's so sweet and nurturing. And then we're not doing drugs. We're just watching our carbs.
You're just eating tons of meats.
That's so funny. And like, just as I continue to like try to eat better, that's hilarious to me that I was like, me and this group will be on Atkins. Great.
We all tried it. And I remember I couldn't do it because you're not allowed to have caffeine. And
I
I
get it.
get these massive, I was like temping at the time, and I would just get these massive headaches because I needed caffeine to literally get me through whatever
Absolutely.
mind-numbing Excel spreadsheet they were giving me.
Absolutely. Oh my God. Yeah, anything that stops me from caffeine. There was a time where I was having weird like heart palpitations. I went to the doctor and they were like, try no coffee. And I felt amazing. Like after I got over it, like just drinking water. And I was like, wow, I feel great. And then the heart thing still kept going. So I was like, oh, it's not coffee. I'll just drink that again.
Did it turn out you were just in an elongated state of fight or flight?
I think probably that's what it was. Yeah. There was no conclusion to that medical mystery. But anyway, I'm so glad you're here. You have chosen a real icon to discuss today.
I was so happy she hadn't been taken yet.
Yes, this is major. Tell us who we're talking about.
Okay, today we will be talking about the one and only Gilda Radner.
Gilda Radner. What a hero, an American hero.
Original member of Saturday Night Live.
Original member and apparently cast first on the show.
Cast. Absolutely. First,
She
she
was
was a
like
killer.
running around with a lot of people that we know from that time, like Jim Belushi, Bill Murray, Martin Short. They were all like performing together in Second City in Toronto and then doing some National Lampoon Radio. And when they were pulling together SNL, they were like, who's the best one that we can get right away? Gilda Radner.
Yeah, and they kind of built the show around her, which is amazing.
Amazing. And to think like just I know we still are in this world of like women being funny and not funny, and there's like, who gets treated bad, and there aren't enough women represented in TV in general and comedy, but like to think of it, what is that, 50 years ago now?
Yeah, how hard that was. I mean, she has some great things that she says about that, where she was in the National Lampoon Radio Hour, and they pulled her in because they knew her from Second City, and they said, "We need someone to play the girl." That was
Right.
kind of how they put it to her,
The girl.
because it was just a bunch of dudes, and they said,
Right.
there's always a girl that comes in, and she said it was always like someone bringing coffee or like the
Right.
secretary or something. And she talks about that time where they would all be pitching, and she could never kind of get her pitch out fast enough, or she would like start to pitch and someone would kind of piggyback the idea and take it. And so she said, I'll be the typist and I'll type out the ideas. So she kind of had this way of gaining control, and she would go, okay, I'm just going to type in my idea. Give me a
Yeah.
second. She was able to find a way to kind of interrupt that male energy where she just couldn't get a toe hold, and created that space for herself, which is really kind of brilliant.
So
And
brilliant.
she said, she would pitch something and they would say, that's a great idea, but there was never a thought of, oh, we need to create a character for you and we need to have
No,
something where
yeah.
you lead the way. She had to completely make that by herself. And then, of course, once she did, it was obvious how brilliant she was. And then they kind of opened it up a little bit more. But she was really supposed to be the utility woman who would come in and play, the grandma and the
Right.
mom.
Yeah.
And
The
um,
secretary.
yeah, they just didn't. I mean, and they were young and it was the 70s, but they just did not see her as a viable talent. They just saw her as checking a box. So it's
And so
really
so
amazing.
crazy.
Yeah, it's so impressive that she kind of knew she had to, I mean, manipulate is the wrong word, but she had to kind of bend the situation and kind of find the way to sneak in.
Yeah.
And then once she was in, she kind of surpassed.
Right, she's getting all the laughs and she's killing it. When did you watch those old SNLs? Was that your introduction?
I think they must have been reruns because I was a 70s kid, but I would have been way too little to
Right.
see it in real time. But the first thing I remember seeing her do was the Judy character, which is when she's in the brownie uniform.
Yes.
She's in her room and she's playing and she throws herself against the door and I'm gonna go to Bolivia. I'm gonna run here, blah blah blah. And then like flops on her bed, and then you hear Jane Curtin as her mom go, Judy, what are you doing up there? And she just sort of slowly gets up and then goes, nothing. And
Yeah.
I think it really, I was thinking about this yesterday. I think that really struck me because as creative kids, we all did that in some form, playing in our rooms at this private, whatever we
Right.
were doing, pretending to be somebody, thinking the outside world. I mean, she's really shocked when her mom yells, what are you doing up there? It's like,
Right.
kind of forgets anybody could hear her. And I think we all relate to that escape of creativity and doing all our weird little interviews or making up songs in our room. And the fact that then as an adult, she's kind of showing you, this is how I got here. And I'm
Right.
basically doing the same thing now as a grown adult on national television in front of
Mhm.
millions of people that I did. And there's something so beautiful about that.
Well, I remember seeing that as a kid and feeling understood and like a kinship with that character.
It's really innocent. And the other character that I really loved was the one she had based on her grandmother,
Yeah.
Emily Latella, who is hard of hearing.
Right.
And she had a really close relationship with her grandmother, Dibby. Really kind of similar to Carol Burnett. Like this grandmother
Yeah.
role in her life was the kind of person who said, I see you and you're beautiful. And Gilda was kind of a chubby kid. And she said it was hard because her mom was really glamorous and beautiful. And her dad passed away when she was 14. And so Dibby was 53 years older than her, but she said, my best friend is 53 years older than me, and we do everything together. And I think it was really Dibby who said, you're really funny.
Mhm.
And if you make the joke first about yourself, then nobody else can make it. If you call yourself chubby first and make a joke of it and make everybody laugh, then the focus is going to be on something else. And so the character she ended up creating, does that famous bit on Weekend Update where she's talking about violins on television and, they should be violins on television. And they always correct her as the bit violence on television. Then she goes, never mind.
Yeah, I saw in a appearance where she was on David Letterman and she called Dibby on the phone because she was like, "I'm really just doing her. That's what this character is based on." And so Gilda was like, "Everyone wants to hear you say never mind," and she did it in the exact same tonality that that line is delivered. Never mind.
Never mind.
Just
Yeah.
exactly an impression of her.
Oh, and I think those characters, they're very innocent, they're very
Mhm.
pure. And then later she said that when she created Rosanna, which is
Oh,
probably her most famous, she said that came from living for a few years in New York City while she was doing the show and kind of, becoming a little New Yorker, like the New Yorkness was rubbing off on her, that wasn't really in her nature. But I think we all can relate. Like you come to New York and then all of a sudden you're kind of doing all those things of like, walking down the street and being kind of armored up and,
mhm.
you have to become tough
You do,
just to
yes.
get around and survive. And so she said that was kind of her expression of, like when she says, "Oh, Richard, you sound like a real attractive
Yeah,
guy." Like that's her becoming just a little bit of a cynical New
right.
Yorker. But people, that was probably, the one that everyone, if you don't know much about Gilda Radner, that's probably the character.
Right. And that's one, that name is incredibly funny. And then two, the wig she's wearing is so triangular and too big. And she said when she was picking out that wig that someone was like, "Well, that one doesn't fit you, right?" And she's like, "But it's funny."
Yeah, just the idea of naming her Rosanna Dana is just, it's so completely silly. And it sort of reminds you, yeah, this is all silly.
Yeah.
Like I think sometimes we get lost in the sauce of like trying to be really intelligent in our comedy and trying to make it really elevated. It's like, no, at the end of the day, look at what we're doing. We're just
Yeah.
being silly.
Let's just give her a silly name and go and roll with it. I think that's maybe the year that she won the Emmy. She was nominated a couple times
Yes.
and then won one year. And I think that's the year that they came up with Rosanna Dana.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing to think that her tenure on the show was 5 years. Most of those
Doesn't
people.
seem long.
That doesn't seem long, but I think it was so explosive and they became
Yeah.
literally celebrities overnight, which I don't think that concept totally, I mean, I think it still happens, but I think it's so different now with technology
There's
and social
more
media.
saturation, there's more people out there. Like if there was four channels at the time, then
And
everyone's watching that.
they said that they were really insulated working on the show and being in New York and not really having a break. And then I guess they went to New Orleans to do some sort of parade, I think in the first year. And it was really the moment where they realized how famous they were because people were trying to mob them. And they said it was really kind of terrifying because people
Yeah.
were trying to like pull on Gilda's clothes and jump on them and hug them and stuff. And you see pictures, they have these black and white pictures of it, and they all kind of look a bit spooked because it was that moment of going like, oh, in New York, we walk down the street and people were like, "Hey, Bill, hey, Chevy, Gilda." But to go out to New Orleans and be kind of mobbed by these throngs of people, and it was so brand new, the format sketch, and people hadn't really seen it in
Mhm.
most cases, and realizing the impact. I think they were it was 5 years, but it was such a full 5 years. It created so many iconic sketches that they all talk about how amazing it was, how much fun they had, that it was like a family, all of those things, but that they were really deeply, deeply exhausted.
I
And
can't
then they were
imagine.
very deeply stressed because the bar just kept getting higher and higher for people wanting to see more and funnier and better. And there was no blueprint for it. And that's when Gilda's eating disorder really kind
Mm.
of became out of control because that was kind of my dog is crying. Hopefully you don't
I
hear
can't
it on.
even,
Okay, good. She's
but
upset.
but the dog should never cry. Let's save the dog.
Save the dogs. She's looking at me with these
Does he have anything to say about Gilda?
she loves Gilda. She's a fan.
You have a very cute dog, I recall.
She's super cute. This is Punky, but I just because sometimes if a mailman comes, she gets really crazy. So I just put her in her little crate with a chew toy, but she was just kind of noticing that I had pulled a fast one on her.
You're not
Um,
going anywhere.
yeah, she's like, "You're just on the computer." So yeah, the pressure got to her. She had bulimia.
Yeah.
And a lot of her castmates say they didn't really have the language. They didn't really know what bulimia was at the time,
Mhm.
but they knew that she would eat huge amounts of food for comfort and then throw up.
There's a wild moment where they were doing a bit about what she was eating.
Yeah, they would come on if they had an odd number of minutes left in a show. Say they had only 2.5 minutes and there was not enough time to do a full sketch. They would just do this thing called What Gilda Ate.
That
And she would
seems,
come on. I mean, it's so weird and tone deaf.
yeah,
Um, and it just sort of goes to show you the difference of the time,
yeah, like we have no idea that this is sort of spotlighting a terrible issue that she has, but
Yeah.
we're laughing.
And that
Tell
she
us how you binged.
always made it really funny because she'd be like, well, and then and nobody knows this. She'd say this. I'm like, nobody knows this. But then on the way home, I stopped to get apple pie a la mode and I ate it really fast. But then I still was hungry, so I stopped to get peanut M&Ms, and
Yeah.
yeah, so
And it did play funny, but like if you know what's going on with her, it's really not funny.
it's really not funny because she was so, 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 so thin. I mean,
Yeah.
she didn't have an ounce of fat on her body at that time. And I think that's how she was, she made everything look effortless, but everyone who knows her says she really wanted to be great and she would worry if a bit didn't land and she would stress about it later, which is funny because when you see people who are so good at what they do, like Kate McKinnon, had said the same thing once and it really caught me off guard because she said something like, I think I need to leave SNL because the way that I'm doing it right now might kill me. And you don't think about, because when you see someone just crushing it on stage, you're not necessarily thinking about everything that goes into getting that
Homework.
process. And I think Gilda was an example, and again, because this was all brand new, of someone who just made it look like she's having the time of her life. And I think she was in the moment on stage, but it came at a cost. It didn't land and it wasn't the way she wanted it. She really beat herself up a lot. And I think everyone in the creative field can relate to that because you see someone perform, there's always so much more to it. There's always so much more work than you
Writing, the
imagine.
rehearsing, the rewriting, the trying it out for people, all that stuff that goes into it.
And the psychology of on the way home, I feel like there's so many jobs I've done where you're just there for a day and it all
Hmm.
goes by so fast and you're kind of in fight or flight and you're kind of like in the moment. And then on the way home, you're kind of rerunning the tape and going
Yeah.
like, did I do it as well as I could? When they had me do it again, was it because I didn't get it? And you can really suck the joy out of a great thing by over-examining. But I think we're all, especially in comedy, I think there's this idea that it all happens so effortlessly. And really, there's
Right.
so
It's
much.
easy, it's fun. We're just making it up right then and there.
Yeah. And the truth is that I think a lot of us that are funny are also prone to perfection in an odd way.
And sensitivity.
Yeah. And she
Seems really
definitely,
sensitive.
she was super sensitive. And I think she definitely had probably some undiagnosed depression.
Sounds like, yeah.
She had a lot of love affairs, and everyone who knew and loved her says this openly, but with love, that she was needy in her relationships. And so she needed to be validated. And that, confusing to people at the beginning because Martin Short famously had a love affair with her when she was 26. He was 22. They were doing Godspell, which just, I wish I could just get
Oh,
a time machine and
right.
Dean Levy and
The
just
whole
all
Godspell cast is
Bayne, Stephen Schwartz, like who went on to create all these iconic American musicals. But he was confused by it because he was 22, inexperienced, and he would say, she would be prone to these sort of dark moods and, moments of what we know now to be pretty
Mhm.
standard, depressive episodes. And he would try to logic, her way out of it and say, you don't really have anything to be depressed about. You have family money, you got money in the bank. Everybody loves you. All the women want to be your best friend and all the guys want to get with you. What do you have to be depressed about?
Yeah,
Which
sure.
when you're depressed and someone says that to you is the most isolating thing in the world because you don't know. You can't explain
Right.
it. And even then they didn't have the language. So he said we would fight about that because I couldn't understand it, and I was young and naive and wish I could, sort of talk to my younger self and
Martin
know.
really killing it with the ladies.
Martin Short, can I just tell you, is my celebrity crush at this moment. And his relationship now with Meryl Streep is so
Yeah.
aspirational.
It's so cute.
It's so freaking cute, and they look like they're always having so much fun. It really actually, and I'm not joking when I say this because I am a single person. I have always found love to be very confusing and confounding. It really gives me hope that you could find, because they just, now that they're together, you think, how could they ever have not been
Right, yeah.
together? It
Why
makes
did
so
we
much
start
sense.
25 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah. That you might just end up with the love of your life in your 70s.
It's
Let's hope
very
they never
sweet.
break up. I really need this.
You guys to die together.
No, it's so cute, but he is so incredibly, not only is he so incredibly funny and all the things we know about him, he's extremely emotionally intelligent. And I think to be able to say that in retrospect and say,
Yeah.
I understand, and I wish I had more capacity to have empathy for her then, because they were
Yeah.
together off and on for about 5 or 6 years.
He started at 22, that's you're still figuring so much out. But yeah, to know,
Um,
what sort of mistakes you made is really nice.
Yeah, and I think he still, as does everybody, talks about her with such reverence. And
Mhm.
it was shocking to me when I was sort of revisiting some of the facts about her life to remember that she passed away at the age of 42, which
42.
is so young. Because I think when I first started my Gilda obsession, I was in my teens and early 20s. I
Mhm.
did a little one person kind of tribute to her as my final project. I was an apprentice at Actors Theater of Louisville, which was amazing, amazing experience, core experience of my life. And we had to do we did kind of a big showcase at the end.
Okay.
And I did kind of an excerpt from her book, It's Always Something,
Mhm.
and did one of the little songs that she performed in her one person show at the Winter Garden Theater in the late 70s. You had 10 minutes to just kind of like come out and whatever, you like show everybody kind of who you are. And I was really into her at the time, and so I did this whole thing about her. And I think when I did that, and I think I was 22 or maybe 24, 42 sounded so.
Right. It did, when you're 20, it does sound old, and now I'm 46 and I'm like, oh,
And it's wild to think about, they held up her picture at the 50th
Mm.
SNL reunion, which was so lovely. And it's so difficult to think about. She would have been 79, and all of the years we didn't get, you
Right,
know, her and all the things she could have gone on to do.
right. So many like the middle-aged Gilda Radner resurgence would have been so fun.
It would have been so amazing. And I think that's really difficult for the people who were her castmates who knew her, who loved her. Like she would have just gone on to do, I think, tons of movies and
Yeah,
probably stand-up specials and stuff like that. But what we did get is so evergreen and so iconic and so long lasting. And I think that's why we're still talking about her. This the same reason we're talking about Lucille Ball and Carol
yeah,
Burnett, and that these moments that they gave us, that they gave American culture, are never going to go away. And not many people can say that, you
right.
know.
She's like an inspiration for all of our current day inspirations, like Amy Poehler, Melissa McCarthy, Tina Fey, like every woman in comedy can trace something back to a Gilda Radner sketch that they saw when they were younger and made them happy.
100%. I think it's a huge inspiration for anyone sort of Gen X and onward. And you see it in Amy Poehler's work. You see it in Melissa's work. I mean, you see the foundation. And when you think about the fact that she was the first, it was an unknown format, and she made it look so easy and so fun.
And she like figured out that a catchphrase is
Yes,
something that would give you staying power. Like all those characters had catchphrases.
that's right. And that's such a, like, you learn that in sketch writing 101 now, where it's like, okay, what are you going to go back and repeat three times, And I think, yeah, so I think the thing that is so wonderful about Gilda is, she just thinking about her, talking about her, just the mention of her is so light and positive. And it sort of goes back to that quote. It's like she said this in one of her diaries, and I don't know if it's her thought or it's attributed to somebody else, but it's like people won't remember what you did or what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel.
Right.
And I think the reason we all wanted to be her or be around her, or watch her, is because it was all just so positive and light. And if you watch a sketch, it makes you feel better after you watched it before. And that I think right now for me, feeling a bit beaten down by the industry and
Yeah.
all of the challenges we've had with COVID, and then the strikes and like the fires, and like kind of this moment we're like, what's happening? Are we ever going to kind of have like steady Eddie, like even waters
Yeah.
again, where we just get to do this thing that we love? I've been sort of struggling with trying to reconnect with, why did I want to do this in the first place?
Mm.
Because I like making people laugh, and I
Right.
like telling stories and creating things with other people that then people watch and say, "Oh my gosh, this moment, I remember this moment," or when I was watching this, that made me giggle because it reminded me of blah 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 blah. And I think it's so easy because you have to make a living and you have to pay your bills, and you have to, like, you kind of get a little bit away from the reason you started it in the first place.
Right. The joy, the creating of the joy and the connection that you have with people because of it.
Yeah, and I think that to me, it was so nice to sort of accidentally be reminded of that watching some clips. And I watched a special on her on Saturday night because I wanted to just sort of refresh,
Mm.
have it all be fresh in my mind when I saw you today. And I thought, oh man, this is it, right? It's like we have to remember why we did it. And Gilda originally got into the performing arts because she wasn't trained or anything. When she had her breakup, she moved to Toronto to be with a guy. She
Mhm.
left her senior year of college at University of Michigan, moved to Toronto to be with him, and she just wanted to be a homemaker. And things started going south because he didn't like her being funny when she would crack
Exactly.
jokes around the house. It's so it's so insane, but I really feel it because I do think there are a lot of people who don't like that. And she said it felt like a part of me was dying,
Hmm.
that he didn't want me to be funny. And there was this theater, and she said I just wandered in there one day and kind of sat in the audience and watched what they were doing, and it made me feel good. So I asked if I could work in their box office
Wow.
because I just wanted to be sort of around the rat-a-tat-tat and like the banter and the energy of the theater. And then from there, it was, oh, do you want to be in these sort of pantomimes that we do for school assemblies? And then that was how it started. So she was working in the box office because she just knew she wanted to be in proximity to creativity.
Can you imagine if this guy like really wore her down and she was just like, I guess I'll just stay in Toronto and not perform ever. Like like
Yeah.
there's a fork in that road.
Yes, it's so crazy because he was a sculptor, he was a creative person.
Yeah,
And yeah, if he was someone like who was like, I love how you make me laugh at dinner, she may have just, been on that track and we never would have,
right. Yeah,
we
it's
would,
almost good. I was thinking it's bad that he did that, but it's good that he did that. So she got out of there.
I mean, we have him to thank.
We have this sort of misogynist friend to thank for Gilda.
This awful sculptor who's, I won't say his name, but he's probably still in Toronto making a bad sculpture. No, it's insane. It's insane because I think, yeah, when you think about the sliding doors kind of moment of
Uh-huh.
that, and of her wandering into this theater and being like, "Hey, do you need someone to work the box office?" Like that is insane.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then she turns out to be Gilda Radner, American hero.
Yeah, American Hero is right.
Yeah. I just watched, there's a great documentary on Hulu called Love Gilda. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes, that's what I watched Saturday night.
Yeah.
Kind of
Really
myself.
lovely. And they used a lot of her journals in it throughout the documentary. And so you're really seeing her inner life and like how sensitive she was and worried about performing well and being a good person and finding love and worried about her eating disorder and all that stuff. You really get to see a personal side of it. It was really sweet, a documentary.
She was very earnest in her kind of in her search. She was a real seeker, and those entries that they read are they're almost childlike in the way that she's kind of trying to sort through it all, but it's all so completely relatable.
Yeah. So
And
relatable. Yeah. I mean, I felt like a lot of it could have been things from my own journals.
yeah, and I think that's why, yeah, that we love her so much because she wrote about it, and her book, It's Always Something, came out 2 weeks after her death and was a bestseller. And she shared it all. I mean, she was so she was so open, and I think there's a mystique around people that do something so well, Olympians and stuff like that. And so to encounter someone who does something so brilliantly, who also is willing to be vulnerable and share
Hmm.
how hard it's been and everything that it took, I think makes you love them even more because you
Absolutely.
see yourself in it and you go, well, I also struggle and things don't come easily to me. And thank
Mhm.
goodness it's not someone saying, yeah, whatever. Like I get up and I do it and it just is perfect.
So much less inspiring.
So much less inspired. Boo, boo to
Yeah.
that.
Let's hear your struggle.
Yeah, well, it's vulnerability. It's so, and it's, as they say, it's brave. Being vulnerable is an act of bravery, and
Yes,
she was always in her comedy very brave. And I think in her personal life and in her pursuit of love, like her relentless pursuit of love, she took a lot of risks because if you get banged up that much, like in love, it means you're really putting yourself out there.
that's true. I was surprised to learn that she was married to G.E. Smith, head of the SNL.
It's so crazy because it's such a weird match. And they kind of say, like, well, not a lot of people even knew they were dating.
I wonder who else he dated.
I know, and he was such a mainstay. He's not on there anymore, obviously, but he was in that
Yeah.
band for decades.
You really saw he would get a good camera time.
And
Yeah.
he would always like as they cut to commercial, like "Meow," he'd always have like where he's like really feeling it. I mean,
Yeah.
I would love to hear because then he just got he got kind of dropped like a hot rock for
Right,
Gene.
right.
But I think he was probably like, I'm lucky to have had that time.
Yeah, let me just thank her for the time we had. Yeah, G.E. Smith, is there a G.E. Smith book coming out about all his liaisons on the show?
That should be, it would be so great if he was just like privately a total beast and was like, he had, something every week.
Yep, every season somebody new. Yeah, G.E. Smith, give us the tea.
The quiet ones. It's always those quotes.
Yep, he's just over there strumming that guitar. All the ladies are like, look at him.
Ooh, yeah, look at his arms.
Ooh, GE.
And what is GE? I mean, we could really do
We
a
don't
whole
know.
also like GE, like what are you hiding with? What's that name? Gregory Edward?
Could be something, yeah, as wholesome as that. Well, she is a treasure. You are a treasure. It was so fun just talking to you about her and looking up all these old sketches and revisiting her and just remembering how much I loved her when I was a kid. And thank you so much for doing all your research. What
Oh
a
my God.
well-researched guest I've had today.
Well, I loved her and it was all in there because I've read I've read her book and so many things, but it was really lovely to go in and refresh my memory and watch that documentary on Saturday and like really remember, some of the details
Mhm.
because like I said, I think we need well, I'll speak for myself. I need that inspiration right now. And I need
Yeah.
to be reminded of the purity of just, the laughter and they had this great clip in that documentary where they're rehearsing and it's just the audio of her and Jane Curtin rehearsing and Gilda can't stop laughing. And Jane Curtin says, "Okay, think about your dog dying." And she goes, "My dog did die." And then they can't stop laughing. Then Gilda goes, "You think about your dog dying." And they're both just laughing so hard. And for me, that's just it. Like, it's like they were having just as much fun in the making of it as we got watching it. So,
And that's really what I miss about like this industry being slow right now is like all those times where you're just co-creating something with someone and you're just hysterical laughing and you're like, we get to do this for work. This is great.
yeah. Yeah, we're getting paid for this, or sometimes.
Sometimes we hopefully again as well.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Soon. Well, this was a delight and a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Bayne. And thanks everyone for listening. Follow us on She's Funny Podcast on Instagram. Bayne, you got an Instagram you want to plug here?
I do. My
Or
Instagram is
social?
is easy. It's at Bayne Gibby and
Follow her for cute
upcoming.
pictures of her dog.
I will warn you, it's a lot of dog.
That's honestly the kind of stuff we need these days, dog content.
Yeah, it's getting me through.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks everybody. We'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.